Today we're tackling one of the most important Star Wars questions of all time. Why is Biggs Darklighter so great? Okay, obviously most people don't have that question or even opinion, but I do, and people ask me all the time why that is. Why am I obsessed with such a minor character? Why do I spend every convention looking for even one more new trading card to add to my Biggs collection? Why do I have a Biggs collection in the first place? Today I'm going to talk about who Biggs Darklighter is, why I love him, and I'm going to make the case for his importance to Star Wars. Biggs Darklighter was the childhood friend of Luke Skywalker. They grew up on Tatooine learning to fly their skyhoppers through Beggar's Canyon. When Biggs was old enough, he joined the Imperial Academy, hoping to leave his homeworld behind to see the galaxy. But during his time there, he learned how oppressive the Galactic Empire truly was. After his graduation, he traveled back to Tatooine to tell Luke he was defecting to the Rebel Alliance. Not long after, he reunited with Luke and they flew together in the Battle of Yavin. During the attack on the Death Star, Biggs was shot down, providing cover for Skywalker, giving his friend enough time to make the impossible shot that destroyed the superweapon. In all honesty, that's a pretty basic Star Wars backstory, nothing too crazy, so why did I latch onto this character so much? I had a very early fascination with Biggs because he wound up being a gateway into not just Star Wars knowledge, but filmmaking knowledge as well. I was introduced to Star Wars in 1994 when I was about 7. The special editions weren't out yet, so Biggs didn't have his own scene with Luke in the movie, he was just a pilot with a rad mustache. As I became obsessed with Star Wars, I started to read books about it, and several of them made additional references to this Biggs character. I vividly remember seeing a picture of his deleted scenes with Luke on Tatooine where he's wearing that cape, and I was shocked. It was the first time I learned about deleted scenes, and I was so confused by the idea. Why would someone write and shoot an entire scene but not include it in the final movie? Back then, we didn't have DVDs with special features. We didn't have the internet or YouTube to easily find and watch the scene. Knowing there was all this extra story to that mustached pilot that dies at the end had captured my imagination and my curiosity, but there wasn't much I could do to satisfy that curiosity, so the legend of Biggs Darklighter and his deleted scenes began to build in my mind, but then faded over the course of the next 3 years or so. In 1997, the special editions were released. Although the Tatooine scene was still not included, George Lucas did restore a conversation between Biggs and Luke right before the Battle of Yavin. I remember getting excited in the theater going, "Oh my gosh, it's Luke's childhood friend, they're actually talking!" And then I was devastated when Biggs promises to hear all of Luke's stories when they get back from the fight. My connection to Biggs was rekindled. Then, in 1998, something big happened. LucasArts released a CD-ROM called Star Wars Behind the Magic. It was basically just a collection of DVD special features before DVDs had become mainstream. Among that collection was rare film footage that included those deleted scenes from Tatooine. At long last, I was going to see those amazing shots of Biggs in his cape, and when I did, I finally understood why a director might choose to delete scenes from the final cut of the film, because honestly, it's not a great scene. The beginning of the movie wouldn't have flowed as well, Luke is even more mature and silly. That is the point of his arc, but still, the fact of the matter is, the scene isn't necessary to the story, and it doesn't quite match the quality of the rest of the film. Despite my love for Biggs, I think removing the scene was absolutely the right call. But still, those first 4 years solidified Biggs Darklighter as an important part of my introduction to Star Wars. I learned lore about him, I learned about filmmaking through him, I got his action figure when it came out. I wouldn't have called him my favorite character as a kid, but he was definitely someone I knew a lot about. And that probably didn't change for about a decade, but in 2008, I got my first dog as an adult. He was a beagle, and for no real reason I can remember, I thought Biggs would be the perfect name for him. I think that is what really pushed Biggs Darklighter into genuinely becoming my favorite character in Star Wars. Kind of as a joke, because I would point him out to my dog every time the movie was on, and then cover his eyes when the unthinkable happened. But naming my dog after this character that I had a genuine fascination with growing up was the final piece of the puzzle. Do I really think Biggs Darklighter is the most important and impactful character in Star Wars? No, I don't expect anyone to agree with me on that. He's just one of those characters that always puts a smile on my face. He's someone that I get very excited about whenever he pops up. But I do think there is a major argument to be made for his importance both in and out of universe. In the story, even though his major scene was deleted and it wasn't necessary to see to understand Luke's journey, it does spell things out very clearly for the audience. At the start of the movie, Luke is far more apolitical. He dislikes the Empire Empire, but not for reasons he can articulate. He lives on a planet in the middle of nowhere, and the Empire doesn't really affect him. He knows the Empire is bad, but he's also fully willing to join their academy if it means escaping his desert home. Biggs was the same way, but he went out and got some real-world experience. He's basically like a friend who went off to college without you, learned more about the world, and then tries to pass that wisdom on to you. He is able to tell Luke specifically what's wrong with the Empire, why they need to be stopped, and why he's joining the rebellion. He warns Luke not to stick his head in the sand because the day will come when the Empire will affect his life in a very real way, and of course he winds up being right. In that scene, Biggs is dressed up. His friends treat him with respect while giving absolutely none to Luke. He doesn't look down on Luke, but Luke very clearly looks up to him. He's a character painted with high status in those scenes, someone for Luke to aspire to. Then our hero goes on a major adventure that changes him and forces him to grow up. When we see Luke and Biggs together at the end of the movie, they're on equal footing. They're dressed the same. Heck, Luke is even leading Biggs in their trench run. And of course, that's where Luke once again experiences loss at the hands of the Empire. Actor Garrick Hagan has some fun things to say about Biggs' fate in the movie. In an interview, he said, "When Mark and I first met before we started the film, he told me, 'You've got the best part, you die.' And I actually think that's true. I had a very good part, and dying on film is not a bad thing because you get all the sympathy from fans. Fans always tell me that they really miss the deleted scene with Luke and Biggs and wish it were back in there. Some have even cut their own versions of Star Wars which include that scene and send them to me. Of course, later on, I wished I hadn't died." Me too, Garrick. And by the way, I've had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Hagan at Star Wars Celebration 2017, and he was awesome. Just a delightful man, even if he did seem surprised when I told him Biggs was my favorite character, because it's not one you expect to hear. But that's Star Wars fans for you. We love our background characters so much, we've got a term for it. Just in case you haven't heard the term glupshido before, it originated in a tweet back from 2020 poking fun at the attachment Star Wars fans have to minor characters. Since then, it's become a term used throughout the fandom, and I think there's an argument to be made that Biggs Darklighter is the original glupshido. He kinda set the template for how we know Star Wars lore to be in this modern era. In 2024, it's almost more surprising to come across a random character that doesn't have a name. Oh, that lobster man? That's Therm Scissor Punch. The Death Stick dealer? That's Elon Sleaze Bogano. That dude with the ice cream machine? Obviously that's Wilro Hood. But in 1977, that was far from the case. Sure, there were plenty of interesting background characters that captured the imagination, especially in the cantina scene, but Ponda Baba was just known as Walrus Man. Mamau Nadan was called Hammerhead. None of these minor characters had lore behind them back then. None of them except for Red 3, Biggs Darklighter. Fans like me could stumble across additional story details for that pilot with the killer mustache. I think that experience is what created my love for minor or background or underappreciated characters in Star Wars. I love that you can learn more about nearly every single weirdo in every single movie. I love that every Star Wars fan has their own favorite and personal reasons behind their choice. It's such a specific part of celebrating fandom that I will always enjoy, and I would argue that Biggs Darklighter paved the way for it. I'm sure plenty of fans would also make the argument for Wedge Antilles, and don't get me wrong, he's another excellent choice, but I don't think he solidified himself as one of the greatest glupshidos of all time until he reappeared in The Empire Strikes Back, and then again in Return of the Jedi. I still say Biggs did it first. But that's why I love Biggs Darklighter so much. I've finally done this video, so now I can point people here whenever they ask. I'm considering turning this into an ongoing series, basically making the argument for why any given minor or background character is important to the overall Star Wars story, experience, or fandom. So let me know who you think I should cover in the future down in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.